And we're live.
And we're live.
Here we are.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us again. Val and Roy with you in the Delphi Creativity Center in Lansing, Michigan.
Yes.
And so we're going to answer some questions this week. So we asked a couple weeks ago if you had any questions, and a few of you sent them out to us, so we appreciate that greatly. We're going to read them off and try to answer them the best that we can.
But we're also going to take questions, right?
Correct.
If someone has one and wants to chime in, because, these are okay, but...
Yeah, if you got a question you want to ask us,
something else,
feel free to ask us a question.
Yeah.
That's true.
So we'll just start. I'll read the one where it starts here.
We'll just take turns reading them. How about that?
All right. So it'd be nice, you know how I see it sometimes on shows where they'll read the person's name. So and so from
we don't have the names.
Malibu, California asks. That's not right. I have no idea. I have no idea who sent this. But anyway,
some of them are Instagram and some of them are Facebook, so they don't all have names with them.
Okay.
All
right.
Which is why we omitted them.
Okay. I have so many questions about stained glass, but I think my first two are: how do you know when a copper foil piece needs additional support, and what's the best way to support it?
That's a great question, and I think you and I looked at this a little bit earlier, and I think we have a difference of opinion. So, I mean, maybe not difference of opinion, but just a different approach to determining that.
Well, you have a formula.
I have a formula. Yeah.
I live in formula worlds too.
Yeah, that's not Val. Val's not the formula person, but
no. But truly, I mean, your answer will probably be more helpful from mine, and mine is I just sort of do it by sight and where the break lines are and the actual size of the piece, and I just sort of actually look at it and sort of feel like where the weight could be an issue, and then those are the places I will divide up and break, which we should probably talk about how we do that, right, too. So you give your formula, and then we'll talk about reinforcing strip or rebar or whatever.
Yeah, so I have a formula that's not really mine. I'd heard it from somebody, a gentleman that had done a lot of repairs, for many years. No, I didn't invent the formula, but it is a pretty simple one. But I think one of the things that Val was getting at is, I mean, there's advantages and disadvantages to the formula. I mean, if you just always follow the formula, there's probably times when you're going to probably support something when it might not need it. So part of it is also, where is it going, right? I mean, if you're just going to make a panel and then hang it in your window, and it probably doesn't need a lot of support, but if it's going like in a front door that's going to be open and closed, well, then you definitely want to use some reinforcement for that.
Cabinet doors sometimes.
Yep, cabinet doors.
Are a good place to do it.
But the formula really is, it is every 18 inches you'd want to reinforce. So any panel 3 feet or bigger is when you start looking at whether you need to support it or not. And then, like, I think, Val has a valid point. Look at the design and decide, if you got a lot of large areas with not a lot of lead lines or solder lines, then you might want to reinforce that, right?
Yeah, but if you have talked about this, I think, in one of our other things, where if it's a piece that just has a lot of pieces that are scattered and fairly evenly placed, then your need to reinforce that is not as great as if you have, a horizon that goes all the way across, and then the water that goes all the way across. You know what panel I'm thinking of, right? Yeah. And so, but I do sympathize with the fact that it, even though you have a formula, it's still not, it's when this and this and that. I mean, it's not as definite as I think as a lot of us would like it to be. Are you ever going to hurt it by reinforcing where you don't really need to?
Probably not.
Probably not. But would you risk some gravity issues if you don't? I mean, I guess
Depends.
Maybe you look at it logically, or how much do you care? How much
that's
do
a
you
big
care
part of it,
about
right?
it? I mean, if it's really something that you're just doing and it's, practice, or it's just going to sit in your house, or, unless you have a real specific idea for it. I mean, sometimes I don't, if I don't care if it doesn't last 50 years, I may not even really worry about thinking about it too much. But you know what I mean. It's all has to be pretty personal in terms of of how you want to.
And then lead or foil, I think, makes a difference too, brother. If you're making it out of lead came or if you're making it out of copper foil, I mean, that would make probably a decision. A lot of people feel that the copper foil panels are stiffer. again, I don't know if that's good or bad, but compared to lead, and as
They're
Val
also-
was kind of hinting
they're
at,
also-
is
yeah.
The lead tends to over the course of time soften, but it's like you said, 50 years, 75 years, it's a long time. But part of that question also was, the last part of it was, what's the best way to support it?
Oh, so I was kind of given a little bit
Yeah,
of
so
that.
I guess that's,
Yeah, that
I
is-
guess if they're asking about specifically what types of reinforcement are available, there's a couple of different types of things. There's the something called strong line or copper. There's another product called copper restrip. So there's stiff, wires that are flat that you would solder into the cane, into the panel. So if you're doing lead cane, it'd go right in the channel
in
of
the
the
channel.
of the cane. If you're doing copper foil, you would just weave it in between
goes
pieces
in
of
the
glass,
seam, and then you solder over
and then
it.
you would solder it. So it goes in while you're putting the panel together, right? So not on top, not on the surface of the panel, but inside it. And then there's rebar, a variety of different types of rebars. I mean, Delphi sells a zinc rebar that does get soldered on the back of the panel, and that gets soldered after you've already assembled your panel. You would put that on the back. Traditionally, like church windows, it's a steel rebar that's put in there. So I guess it just depends on, obviously the steel is going to be stronger than the zinc. But back to some of the things that Val and I were talking about, it depends on the scale, how big is it going, how is it a functioning window? Those would make decisions about what type of reinforcing,
Right.
I think.
Yeah. So
Well, if you're watching and you're the person that asked the question, or if you have a question about what we're talking about, feel free to reach out to us. Right, you can always make a comment in the video section below, or send us a message on Facebook or Instagram, and you can always
in the way
email.
else I was gonna
You
do
could
one.
email us at Facebook@Delphi Glass, even if it's afterwards. And if you email us, we'll get an answer to you. So,
yeah,
or we'll
for
try
sure.
to anyways.
Okay, so we probably don't want to spend all our time on that one question.
No.
Okay, so
there's
you
question 2.
You want to do that?
You want me to do part 2 of that?
Oh.
That was the second one. Part C, huh? Confusing now,
yeah.
right?
Well,
So-
there's not a little mark. Oh, I see
That's
why
why.
you
See,
did that. Oh, Jiminy. Okay, so can copper foil be used for an exterior window that will be exposed to moisture? Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's a
That's
good
a
question.
good question. I don't know.
Okay, how many questions you got? So,
No.
well, I guess it's a matter of opinion, I think.
Yeah.
But Tiffany Studios back in the early part, the late 1800s, right, early 1900s, when they were making windows, Lewis Comfort Tiffany is credited with developing the copper foil technique, and they did windows that were exposed to the elements. When I've talked to people that do large scale installations, they say that they think that the copper foil is actually stiffer and holds up a little bit better. I mean, the only thing I guess you'd have to worry about would be this. Sometimes it's too stiff, right? Well, I guess is the negative to that maybe. And the other is, you deal with lead too, is the oxidation on the metal. Eventually, you might run into some issues, but
Yeah. Well.
but it'd be years,
Yeah, I do appreciate the question though, because I do think that in the early learning process, even for me, I was told that you do lead cane for an exterior application, and you can do copper foil for. So if you want to do copper foil, you would do it like for your front window or your door. You would do it, but you would have an already clear piece of glass in place, and you would use the copper foil one as an insert because you don't want that exposed to the elements. And that's a real popular way of thinking.
Yeah, that's pretty popular
Yeah.
opinion, I think. So.
Right. So, but I mean, I do think you can, like we said, you can do either.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've done small scale copper foil things that I've put outside. That have been outside
right.
for
We
years
did
without issues.
We did the garden stakes.
Yeah, like garden
that we would
stakes or-
change out. We had
Yep.
a snowman, and then we had a
Yeah.
scarecrow, and they held up just
fine. Yeah, I mean they really do. I mean sometimes as long as you're using like a finishing compound at the end, after
I was gonna say,
after
polish it
you've
up
cleaned
good.
your piece, with a flux remover and then used finishing compound. It's a type of wax, and that goes over the glass and any of the metal, so the solder seams, and it just helps kind of keep it from the elements. And another trick that people have used before is they will spray their copper foil stuff with a clear lacquer, and that works too. Or maybe that surface that's exposed to the elements. It's just one more protection that just again keeps the elements off the metal, which just prevents or slows down the oxidation is probably the big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Before you guys move on, Peggy's got a question. Could you mention again the name of the product, Weed in the Foil Pieces? To the reinforcement strip.
There's actually two, right? There's one that's called a reinforcing strip, and it's copper in color, and it's real flat. I mean, it's not...
The steel one? You're talking
Yeah.
about the steel one?
I'm not talking about strong line.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about that
Yeah, I think they
foil-
call it restrip. I think is what maybe on our website. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, it used to be called reinforcing strip.
Yeah.
So, but it's the thinner one. So, and the
Yes.
strong line is similar in the way it is and in the application, except for it's a little more heavy duty.
Yeah, the strong line is steel, and then it has a copper on the outside of it so that you can solder it, right? Because you can't solder to steel. Then the product that Val was mentioning is just purely copper. So the strong line obviously is going to be stronger. So I guess it just depends on, again, the size of your piece and how much reinforcement you think it needs. But I can tell you, working with the copper is easier, right? I mean, bending that in between makes it a whole lot easier than working with the steel. So if that makes a difference.
But the other one would be stronger.
Yeah, the other one's stronger. But,
Yeah.
but good question. Thanks for asking.
Yeah,
So,
good.
well, we're going to move on to the next one. I got the easy one.
Are you going to read this?
Yeah.
It's right here with this mark.
I got it. Thanks. So the question is, you show some great patterns on some of your Facebook posts. Where can a person find them? And when I first read that, I was like, well, Kaylee knows. Why Kaylee can just tell everybody, right?
I did answer, but I thought we should answer it here as well.
Yeah, we appreciate it. So they're on our website, right? So I mean, there's I'm not as familiar maybe with our website as Kaylee is, but there's
the
a
top right corner. So there's an Inspire drop down,
Inspire
and
drop
from
down.
there you're going to see tips and techniques, the free project guides, and links to the artist gallery there as well. So all of our free patterns can be found there on our website.
In the
classes.
top right corner.
In the top right, there's a drop down. Yep.
There's
If you're
Inspire,
on the
right?
mobile, if you're on mobile, you might have to turn your phone sideways on some of
good tip.
on some of the phones that we have heard that feedback.
But they're So otherwise, you can find them right there.
Also,
On there
if you're
somewhere
on our
about-
social media, we've got a link into our bio, and you can find a link directly there as well.
Oh,
nice.
good.
That's
okay.
great.
Nice. Okay, so when do you use black back copper foil versus the others?
That's a good question. We talked, I think, once about the
Didn't we
different
talk
color
about
backings,
foils?
right? You know,
Yeah.
so if you're not familiar, the copper foil comes in 3 different colored backings, and it's really the adhesive that's colored. So there's a black back, like this person's asking about. There's a silver back, and then there's just a regular copper. So it's a copper backed one.
So let's start out by saying, because I think this really simplifies it, it only matters really when you're using glass you can see through,
Oh, yeah.
right? So, I mean, if you're doing something that's opaque, that you can't see through it, just always use the copper on copper because it's the cheapest. So then when you do use, or when you are using transparent glass, especially clear,
Or bevels, right? If you're doing
and
like
bevels,
a bevel project.
If you don't foil real evenly, sometimes you get a little more overhang on the back, and then when you solder over your copper foil, if it's overhung on the back, you'll actually be able to see through the clear glass and see the copper backing of the. Does that make sense? Am I saying it so people can understand?
I'm following you.
And so basically, what we say is that always match your. If you're using transparent glass, always match your back of your copper foil, black, silver, just copper. Always match the back color to the finished color you want your solder to be. So we have choices for your finished solder. You know, you can leave it silver. In that case, if you're using clear glass and you want to leave your solder silver, a silver back would be a good choice. It would be one. So if you're a little off center, when you look through, you're still just seeing silver because the back of that foil is silver and not copper. So the same thing holds true. We have black patina. So if you want to, after you solder, and it will be silver always, but after you're finished, you can turn that silver to black. So if that's what you want your finished color of solder to be, then you would use a black back so that you can not really see any difference in if you're a little bit off center. I hope that made sense.
It made sense to me, but
Does this help?
it does help with the hand
Yeah,
gestures.
that's really our
Okay,
what
good.
makes sense.
Yeah, yes, good. Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
Am I the next question?
It's your next.
Okay. Next question is, please explain about fixings mosaics on table.
Yeah,
Yeah, first, I'm not really sure. They mean fixing mosaic, like to a table. I'm assuming the question has to do with adhering some mosaic material to the surface of a table. Is that? Would you find
I would guess, because otherwise I don't really understand.
So, again, if you're that person that asked the question and you happen to be watching us live, I mean, if you want to reach out to us, if we're not getting it right, just feel free to let us know what we're talking about. But I kind of think that what they're asking about is
adhesives or something.
Yeah, maybe about adhesives working on a table. So I mean, it is kind of not a really specific enough question for me because I mean it depends on the table, I guess, right? I mean it could be. I mean I'm in my head I'm just thinking of a wood table, but it could be plastic or plexiglass. What was I going to say?
Plexiglass?
I was going to say flexiglass, which is there's no such thing.
Is there?
I don't think so.
It sounded all right.
It sounded good though, plexiglass.
It would have been okay.
Yeah, or some other surface other than wood. So then the adhesive. So in mosaics, the adhesive is almost always dependent on the surface you're working on. So you would pick an adhesive to work with the material that the table is made out of. And then the second thing would be function too. So for example, I mean, if you're talking about like a table that might be outdoors, then you would want to use an adhesive that is waterproof. So, if it's just going to be something that's going to be decorative and be inside, then you can get away with using some other types of adhesives that are not as picky, right? So, well, Wellbond's a great adhesive for a variety of reasons. One is,
and it's pretty. You can use it in a lot of different.
Yeah, it actually will bond a lot of different materials. So it will, we're a glass place, so I'm assuming the person asking us about mosaics is working with glass. So Wellbond works really well with glass. So we could do glass to wood, glass to metal,
glass to glass,
glass to glass. So you could do it on plexiglass. You could do it on
flexiglass.
On flexiglass if you had some. I'm never going to live that one down. So then, and then again, but one of the only slight disadvantage to Wellbond is that it's not really a waterproof adhesive. So it's not something that if you were to put it outside and it was exposed to the elements, probably not the best choice. It is a non-toxic adhesive, which is nice. Mm-hmm. It cleans up with water. That's the other nice thing about Wellbond. Pretty easy to work with. But normally, a lot of times when I'm doing something that's going to be on a table outdoors, I use like silicone, right? Silicone's a pretty nice adhesive because it's flexible. So it works real well again if you're working on a table that might have a little movement to it. So again, maybe a metal table or a plastic table or that has some movement especially with temperature change, right? It might move a little bit.
So it can move a little and not be rigid. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So that you want it to have a little bit of flexibility in that regard. And again, it works really well with glass or ceramic tile if you're working with those kinds of mosaic materials. So hopefully we answered that one all right.
Okay, good job. Okay, this one.
This one's a little longer, right?
I have a couple of questions for Roy and Val. I made a few bowls with Vitrograph stringers that I made in the class with Roy a few months ago. Okay, she made the stringers in class, not the bowls.
That's what
I
she's
thought
saying.
the bowl. Okay.
Oh.
They look okay, but the inside of the bowl is rough and needs to be polished. Same with the bottom of the bowls that were touching the molds, which is, they're not rough. When they touch, they sometimes cloud a little, or some people think that they should be really shiny, and that's sometimes, but I don't know how rough. If sometimes it's hard to know.
Yeah.
Words mean different things to different people,
Yes.
So it's kind of hard just to read the words and not really be able to talk to you and truly find out what rough means, right? So.
And the person did send a picture, which we appreciate a ton.
Yeah. No kidding. But they don't.
But
look
even
that
in the
rough.
picture, it's hard. It's hard for us to see in the picture too. I mean, it's a challenge. So
anyway, they say I have stuff to polish rocks. In the rock tumbler, and I've tried to use it on the glass, but it might take hours to polish it. So I don't, like I said, and like you've already said, reach out to us, email us or something if we're not giving you enough of an answer, because sometimes I just don't think we have quite enough
information
to really understand. But in the picture, they're shiny. I can see they reflect. So I don't know how rough they really are, and I wonder if where they touch the molds is just they're concerned because it's not shiny. That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, well, some people might not realize, right? So one of the things that Val and I or Val's talking about anyways, is that when we're slumping, so again in the kiln, right? So we fuse the glass, it goes on a mold, and then we slump it. So where the glass touches the mold, that surface is always not shiny, not the shiniest surface because of the mold. And so sometimes you just have to live with that, unfortunately, right? I mean, that's just really...
I would never call it rough, though.
Yeah, so maybe she's got something else going on.
I would call it more of like a bit of a matte finish. It just doesn't have that really high gloss. That the side that's touched nothing will have that real shiny, glossy surface. So, like I said, so reach out to us if we didn't get that right, and we'll see.
Yeah, one thing, just looking at this, I think I have some questions about temperature would be one of the things that I would ask about is in both applications. So, what temperature are you fusing at? What temperature are you slumping at? Again, I know it's really hard to tell from this little picture, but for me, I'm wondering if maybe the temperature's a little too high. I see looks like some distortion maybe a little bit in the glass. Again, if you want to, but that, again, if you're not wondering what's going on, I mean, that'd be the first thing I would look at always is like look at what kind of temperature you're going to, and perhaps maybe something a little lower might work a little bit better.
Right, because if they've really slumped and then are really sitting in the mold.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Or continued at that temperature for a little bit longer time, that they're going to take on more of that.
Yeah.
Maybe that is rough.
So to answer the rock tumbler question stuff, well, I'm not really sure what the polish is that goes in that, but I can tell you from my personal experience, I have tried to use polishes that we have like cerium oxide is a polish that we use here sometimes to try to polish up areas of glass, and as you mentioned, it might take many, many hours. It's usually not worth it. I mean, the amount of time you'd have to put in to try to polish it is really quite a challenge. So.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, usually you just have to kind of,
But I like the color in the Vitrograph. I think it melted and looks really cute.
Yeah. I mean, as Val and I both mentioned in the photo, I mean, if it's really rough, it's hard to tell from the photo. It looks like it's actually worked out pretty well. So, but anyways, all right, that's the one we didn't answer. Let's go to another one. All right. All right. So here's one. Oh, this is an interesting one. I also really it might be the same person. I also really screwed up and fired a piece after it was finished. I had forgotten to prime the mold, and it chipped in various places. I was able to take all the glass off the mold, but I was wondering if there was a way to fix the mold with bisque fix. And along those lines, is there a way to clean the pieces of glass that the mold is stuck to? I will include a few pictures for your viewing pleasure. But as usual, I can only seem to post one picture at a time. She was having a posting issue. So the question was, if you weren't following, so she fused a piece of glass, slumped it on a mold, but forgot to kiln wash the mold, right? And I can tell you, that's not that unusual of an occurrence. It's happened here probably many, many times, and I know it's happened to me before. And so what happens is the glass stuck to the mold, and she was able to get the glass off, but it's broken right into many, many pieces at this point. And it also chipped off some of the
chunked out, actually.
Yeah, the mold,
Chunked
right?
out
So
some
of it. So the first question was she asked about, or was wondering about a product called Bisque Fix, which is something that Delphi sells. So sorry.
For that purpose.
Correct? Yeah. To fix cracks or missing pieces, and it actually works pretty well. I mean, I've used it a couple times.
And I think in this case, couldn't she kind of fill it? And then when it's dry, she could even kind of sand it a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to do.
I would definitely give it a try.
It's worth a shot. I mean, once you fire the bisque fix, it's hard as a rock. So, as Val mentioned, you definitely want to do any shaping, beforehand, and don't worry about trying to get it perfect when you apply it. Just like Val said, let it dry and come in with some sandpaper, smooth it out. The stuff sticking to the back of the glass, that's a whole nother story, right? I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, there's a variety of things you could try. I know people use, if you had access to a sandblaster, that works, right? Yeah. I mean, that's a good one. People have used a product called muriatic acid. It is something that is used to clean, remove grout from places that you don't want it. It also will dissolve concrete a little bit. So I'm guessing something like that would soften up the pieces on there, but man, I don't know. I mean,
Is it also dangerous?
yeah, well, it's the acid part of that probably is
Yeah, I wouldn't-
something you might not want to fool around with. You could try soaking it in,
You're not going to say vinegar, are you?
I was going to say toilet bowl cleaner, actually.
Oh, okay.
But,
Really? Okay, good. Well, I'm just saying.
I mean, I personally I've never tried the toilet bowl cleaner thing, but I've heard other people tell me that works
I've
anyway.
never, I've never tried the vinegar thing, but
I've tried the vinegar thing, and
I don't-
maybe you have to
I have
like.
no faith in that. I don't even want to waste my
Yeah,
time.
I can't. That's it. I mean, it's a time thing. I know I put it in vinegar before and left something in overnight, and that just is not enough to soften the. If it is, I mean,
Yeah.
it takes longer than that, but.
Really? So toilet bowl cleaner, is there a particular toilet bowl cleaner?
Not that I'm aware of. But,
A liquid one, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to try that.
Tidy
Roy's
bowl.
going to try that, and we will get
That's
back
right.
to you
I thought you
with the
were gonna try
results
that.
of that.
Oh, this question is for you. I forgot to mark it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, now let's see. Oh, there's an opalescent glass called opalite, usually used as a crystal or gemstone. How is that milky and radiant opalescence achieved? I can never find a straight answer on how it's made and where to find sheets of it. Go.
I thought you had an answer
I read
for this
it,
one.
you answer.
You said that
That's how it works.
one of the, we.
Oh, what did I say?
You said we have to confess that we don't know everything.
We don't know everything.
I know we act like we know
I'm
everything.
ashamed to say that,
but
and we've kept it a secret.
we
for a
don't
long
know
time,
everything.
but-
Yeah, so the question was about opalite, and at first I was, Val and I were wondering if maybe they meant some other type of opal glass, right? I mean, there's Bullseye makes a glass called
Opaline?
opaline, and then people just use the word opal to describe, a lot of the different types of glasses that we were talking about. But I think in this case, the person is really asking for a product that is used. It's a opalite is man-made to look like a real opal. So the opal part, that kind of shimmery look that opals have, and it is. Again, not Val and I. You can ask us lots of stuff about
area, huh?
about art glass.
So
but,
you think it's predominantly used in like the lapidary?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's
for
what it
jewelry
is.
and things like
for
that.
jewelry.
So that's not our
Yeah.
area of, I won't say expertise, but
Yeah, we don't know.
any knowledge.
Yeah, we don't
at
have
all.
any
We
knowledge
don't know at
about
all
gemstone
about that.
stuff.
Sounds really pretty.
But I'm pretty sure
I would want some,
that they
but-
don't make it. Again, it's a handmade glass. I mean, it's a man-made glass, so it's similar to like the sheets of glass are made. But my understanding is, I don't see anybody making it in sheets. I mean, I don't think it's. I haven't seen it available in a sheet form. Not like. Anyways, maybe I should say like the sheets that like we're used to getting in for art glass.
Mm-hmm.
But.
But it would
So
be
sorry,
cool.
we were.
So,
It sounds like it'd be really cool, but
Yeah.
I wonder why. We'll have to ask one of the manufacturers one of the times when
But basically,
maybe the Yakagani people when they come in we can
we
look
can
and
ask
ask
them.
them.
Yeah.
But,
But the bottom line is, we
yeah,
don't
sorry
know.
we couldn't
Sorry,
answer
we
that
just
question.
Don't know.
so
But
you-
we can talk a
so
good
yes,
game about
yeah.
nothing, can't we?
So you stumped us. That was pretty good.
Okay, that's
Okay.
you.
So this is me. I have some white. I have some Wismach white opal luminescent glass that I plan to use for a plate. I read on the Delphi site that it is a good idea to do the first firing upside down, so the glass doesn't lose luminescence. Is this really the case? I plan to use another glass as part of the design, and that glass also has a decorative surface. Sorry, I don't have the name of it right here. What would happen if I just do a normal firing piece, right side up is what they're asking, and then a slump? Am I really going to change what happens to the look of the glass, or would it be better to put a sheet of clear glass on top of it?
Wow, lots of stuff in there.
That was a long one, but I think mainly
But you
they're...
can like just nail
Yeah.
it right down
Yeah,
to
we
the
can-
nitty gritty right
Yep.
there and just
Yeah.
say
Nope, you can't.
no.
So
it's
all those,
always got to be.
yeah, all those questions you were asking, you can't do.
Now the one that you don't know what is, we're not speaking to that. The one
Yeah.
that she said she didn't have it handy. If it's a Wismach luminescent, it has to go face down on the shelf for the full fuse, because otherwise that coating will just burn right off. And capping it with clear and doing it that way is not the same thing. I don't.
Yeah, it
personally,
burns
I
off.
don't know
No.
why, but it will burn off. Now, I had forgotten because it's been a while since I used any, but I asked you, and you said that once you full fuse it face down, then if you then in turn are going to slump it, it tends to not burn off in the slumping at the 1250 range. So you can put it in the mold and then slump it with the surface up and hopefully not have an issue. But the full fuse is just plain always got to go face down.
Unfortunately, it does have to go face down. So you mentioned you had another glass and you weren't sure. So I can just tell you briefly. So there's Bullseye makes an iridized glass, and that glass is you can fire it face up, just totally fine. Oceanside makes iridized glass. They have a few colors and some clear textures. That's another one that you can fire face up. Yakagani makes an iridized glass for fusing, and that one is similar to the Wismach luminescent. You have to fire that face down. So if you know the manufacturer of your glass, then you should be able to make a determination about which direction. Now you can fire the Oceanside and Bullseye face down if you're not sure. I mean, you're not really going to change the look of what happens.
If you're not sure
so
what it is.
Yeah.
But we're sure that you would be fine firing that up if it was for sure that, right?
Yeah, Bullseye or Oceanside.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. But if they don't really know.
But if they don't really know, just fire it face down. You're not really going to change the design of your piece that much, I don't think. I mean, I know it's a little more of a challenge to fire something upside down than it is straight up, but it's certainly doable.
Okay.
All
right. So I am new to stained glass art and would like to know more about the best ways to hang pieces. Also, what is the recommended technique for cutting curves? Does your business offer any classes to learn more about stained glass?
Wow.
Just so
like 3 questions all at once.
I know. Right.
So you want to start with just the first one? Oh, how to hang your piece. Best way to hang your piece.
What is it?
I guess it depends on the piece, right?
Well, it depends if it's just a glass or if it's a panel that you can solder hooks, or they make products that actually solder into the solder seams that you can hang from or string the wire across, or
yeah, that's a tricky question, right? Because
people. It depends on. What we would recommend would rely totally on what size it is and where you're going to hang it, and so. But there definitely are things. You could go to our website and search the products, and you'll see there's a bunch of different rings and decorative hooks and
handy hangers that I think you were referring to, right? So it just, what's the best way to hang a piece? Again, as we've been saying,
not a suction cup. I'll say, not a suction cup is not a good way.
Yeah, you can avoid hooking into a suction cup. That's for sure.
If you have a tiny little thing that you want to suction cup to the window, that's okay. But even a tiny little thing, it'll eventually drop. To me, there's just no way around it. Unless you take it off daily and. I was going to say lick it, but don't lick it. Just wet the bag and stick it on there. You know what I mean? Because
I wasn't following you there for a second.
They dry out, and then that's when...
The suction cup.
Yes. That's when it drops. So that's my...
Yes, that's a good one.
I just don't trust him at all. So...
If you have more specific questions, who's ever asking us this one about the hanging, just reach out to us later, and if you have give us a little bit more information about what the project is. Val and I'd be happy to, if you send us a picture of this is my design and where should I put a ring or whatever. We can certainly have an opinion, that's for sure. Really what you're looking for is, strength and stability, right?
Right.
So
never want to
never attach something just right here or
just
something,
the copper foil. You always want to try to embed it in one of the solder seams or something, so that because if you just solder something to that adhesive foil, it's going to
eventually give away.
Pull right away. Yeah. So that's not ever a good idea. So.
And then, so they also want to know about the recommended technique for cutting curves.
Well, you do that demo, don't you, in your beginning stained glass on your
cutting curves?
Cutting curves, don't you? Did you do that in your online? What do you call it? Zoom. Your Zoom class.
I showed how to cut a curve, didn't I? Oh wow.
And as to the fact that do we teach or do we? Yes. In fact, we've just kind of started this new kind of exciting deal where we have all of a sudden got the technology to do Zoom classes. So,
we just started doing Zoom
Roy's
just a little while ago.
He did a beginning stained glass one, which I'm sure you probably would have really enjoyed. And
I did cutting. It was just cutting.
Oh, it was
cutting and soldering.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, one was just cutting, one was just soldering.
Okay, well, apparently I wasn't clear when it was going on.
which we plan on doing again, right? We'll be
do.
doing those, but
But in the cutting one, you did do a curve.
I did do curves. Yeah, I
Okay.
showed a curve. But don't we have? I think in our video section, well, I'm pretty sure that in a Facebook Live
We
we've
have
done cutting,
two
haven't
cutting
we?
videos, both on Facebook, so in the video
Yeah.
section. They're also on our YouTube channel under the Glass
YouTube
Tools
channel.
section.
That's a good one.
Those can be found. And if you're looking for classes, delphiglass.com/classes.
Yeah, we also do private classes. So you know, if you want Val or I in a class, I mean, so we could do just one-on-one if you want to do just some glass cutting. That's certainly something we could do. So you know, again, feel free to reach out to us about that.
Yep.
Am I reading the next one, or are you reading the next one?
I think you are.
Okay, I have a small bowl mold that is 4 inches wide and 2.5 inches deep. I have used it 3 times, twice with other items to slump and once by itself in the middle of the kiln, and each time it comes out very wonky and crooked. Any hints? And they did send a picture, which was nice.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if you can, you want to show, this is the nice picture that they sent. So you can see how lopsided and wonky the bowl is, right? So my first thought was when I read this was, 4 inches is like, not very big, right? And then, but it's 2.5 inches deep. So, I mean, for the width of that is a pretty deep bowl,
It's
right?
deep.
I mean,
It's a little, yeah.
and so, I mean, the fact that it's wonky doesn't surprise me one bit. I mean, the first thing that I always ask people is, is your kiln level? And what I mean by that is the shelf level, right? I mean, your shelf should be level. Otherwise, I mean, we're just dealing with gravity when glass gets hot and gets soft, and it's going to fall. And if it's tipping just a tiny bit, one side will always fall faster than the other. I mean, that's.
And also, I can't really tell, but it does look like she's used different
Thicknesses, is that what you
different
see?
colors
Yeah,
and different.
yeah.
So if you do something that's a bit unbalanced with your design, and you have a little more mass on one side than another, or glass is a little thicker,
that
it's
can
gonna,
make a big difference.
It could go different. It could not drop evenly. So there's a few things that you could do. Now we have some of the bigger, deeper molds here that just totally out of the gate, we know they're gonna drop uneven.
Yeah.
And then we do a second firing.
Yes.
We'll go in and manipulate it.
I do it all the time.
You do it all the time.
Yep, all the time.
And then do another slump, and it evens out.
Yeah.
So you can, kind of jimmy it a little bit and then try to drop it again and see if it can even out. I kind of like this.
Yeah, it is kind of fun.
It's cute. I mean, and I get it. It wasn't what she wanted, and I think it's cool. Try to figure out, what really went wrong, and then so next time she has a better chance. But I still think that's pretty cute, and nobody knows that wasn't what she intended. Well,
That's
we do.
for sure.
We do now, but
Yeah.
but we don't know her name, so.
That's right. Nobody knows.
She won't know.
I just have a couple little bits of advice real quick about this too, is that, what I always tell people about molds in particular is that they're, like a lot of these ceramic molds aren't really made specifically for necessarily slumping glass. I mean, some of them are actually just bisqueware that are intended for people to put a glaze on
To
them
paint and
then
decorate
fire
and
them,
then-
right? The other thing about molds is they're mass produced. So, sometimes, I mean, I see a lot of times where, well, you see them when you get like 5 of the same mold and one's heavier than the other because it's probably a little thicker, or sometimes the sizes aren't exactly the same. But, I mean, that's just part of it. My other real quick advice was just, again, we'll talk about firing schedule a tiny bit. It's just, I always slow down my ramp speed when I'm doing the ones that are deep like this. So go a little slower when you're slumping it. Sometimes it'll fall a little more evenly that way. And then look again at your top temperature that you're slumping at. You might want to lower that. But as Val mentioned, I mean, we have a couple of bowl molds here that I use all the time in classes. And I know every time I put them in, they're just going to be wonky. And I even stop leveling the mold because it doesn't even make a difference. It's really just the mold. And I know that I'm just going to have to slump it twice. So I slump it, it falls kind of cockeyed. I put it back in, straighten it up in the mold, and fire it again, and then it evens right out. So that's usually not, I mean, it's just a little more
It's an
time.
extra
but,
firing, but it does
But
work
it turns
really
out right.
well.
So, yeah, good.
Okay, and then, is it me?
Yeah, it's you.
Oh. Why are you laughing?
I don't really know if it's you. I'm just,
Oh,
you were too easy to go, yeah. I mean, it is you, though.
it is me.
Yeah.
How do you determine the firing
Oh, yeah.
schedule for different thicknesses of glass in the same project? Regular 2 layers of 3mm with 1 layer of 3mm stringers and frit that you want to keep the texture.
Temperature, that's it.
Don't go so hot, right?
Yeah, the key word there was texture, right? I think you and I had, like I said, we had seen this earlier before we came on, and I mean, I know that there's different thicknesses of glass, and so sometimes people get confused by that, right? I mean, they think that the stringer and the frit are going to fuse at a lower temperature or be affected by temperature or a lower temperature, but it's not really. It's just that, you know, the frit and the stringer absorb the heat faster because they're thinner, right? So, I mean, I would pick how you want the stringer and frit to look, and then pick the temperature that's going to give you that look, right? I mean, don't you think? I mean, it might not be enough to really give you the look you want with the thicker stuff, but you got to choose.
So, and your other option then is if that 3, you know, I'm not really sure why you have 3 layers. I mean, you know, I guess I'm sure you have a reason, but I'm thinking in my head that 3 layers of 3mm. And then you want to put stringer on the top. Is that what am I saying?
And frit?
And frit. And then you want to keep that texture. That's what I'm reading. Is that what you
the
get?
Stringer and frit, the 3rd layer.
Or maybe it's like part of it is 2 layers, the other part is 1 layer with the frit and stringer. Maybe that's what they mean too.
Well,
but
yeah.
Either way.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, like what you're saying. I'm not so sure that you can keep your texture and have those 3 layers completely melt together and not depending on how big your stringer is and stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, right?
I mean, so you might have to, or so what I was going to say, whatever your design idea is and you're trying to achieve it, and let's say that's going to be really difficult, then you could fuse your 3 layers by itself first and then go back in and add your detail on the top that you want to keep.
Yeah, I was thinking of like the tree that we have sitting up there. Right?
Yeah, like all of those things we did.
Yeah, and you see the tree, right? So we fired that piece several times just because we wanted different looks.
We needed we needed the background rectangle to melt totally together. But we couldn't do the texture and the blossoms of the tree at the same time because they would have just melted flat.
They would have melted.
So we melted our 2 base pieces, our 2 big rectangles, and then we started adding the frit, and then we refired it at, you know, are you laughing at my hands again? Oh, okay.
No, but I was.
So anyway, so I mean, that's a like a little bit better calculated way to do it. I mean, it's not so much a crapshoot that way.
Yeah, because you can control which each one you want to do.
Because you really then can stay as cool as you want. You can just keep that frit and those stringers practically looking raw if you want to. They'll just tack to the surface of what you've already got fused, if that makes sense.
My other thought on that was pick the lowest of the temperatures. You can always go back and refuse it.
Sure.
If you're never not sure, just pick the lower and you might have to do it again.
Error on the side.
That's a great idea.
Cool. Okay.
All right. So the next question is, what kind of glass do you use for mosaics? You had a great answer.
I said pretty glass. I mean, something you like. I mean, there's no rule really, right?
That's it. I think they just don't know. Right?
I know, and no, that's what I'm saying. We're being. We think it's a cute question.
We do.
And you can use other things too. I mean, my gosh, you could use rocks. You could use broken plates. You could, I mean.
Buttons. I told you
buttons.
You ever tell you the story? Oh, I taught a class, and this woman took this mosaic class. And she brought this big jar of buttons, and they were her grandmother's buttons. Oh. And then so her and her sister took the class, and they were going to do a mosaic with their grandmother's buttons, which I thought was such a cool
and that's
story.
Just it. You can literally use anything. I mean, we do happen to sell glass.
Yeah, we're a glass place. But I think there's probably really, I think maybe there's not a specific glass for mosaics. There's stained glass, architectural glass, fusing glass, right? And all those work.
I
mean, that's all. I mean, you could use any of those in there, which is, to me, always the great advantage to doing mosaics is, I mean, you got a huge palette to choose from. It's not like fusing where you got to use just this, one particular fusible glass. So, opens it up.
And you can incorporate other things in it, metals, and I mean, like I said,
seashells, like rocks. You said. I mean, people use all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, mermaid tail for HF.
Almost anything you can think of that you can glue down, you could probably use. So
Probably could.
But that's I think she was probably more alluding to what glass.
Yeah, what glass,
is
but
appropriate, and like you said, any glass.
And it really depends, I guess, on the mosaic. If you're, traditionally mosaics is about light reflecting off the surface, right? So usually you're gluing to some substrate that you can't see through, so you want to be careful about how transparent the glass is, right? You wouldn't want anything too transparent where you could see if I was gluing to the board, I might not want to see this board coming through it. But other than that, I mean, I guess it's pretty open to whatever you want to do as far as glass. And even transparent glass. I mean, I've done worked on wood before and painted the wood white beforehand, and then used transparent glass, and so you see the white of that coming through the glass, and it actually looks pretty nice. It gives this nice sense of depth because of the
for sure.
of the thickness of the glass.
I do like
right?
using it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be a little careful of the adhesive because you don't want to see the puddle of your.
Yeah, then you have to pick a
glue,
good point.
That's
so.
another one of those
Yeah.
where you need to think about your adhesive based on what you're doing. So.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a question here from Alma. How
Nice.
many times can you fire a piece?
Well, I mean,
how many times do you want to fire?
You can
a piece?
fire it as much as you want. Is that going to cause an issue? Not probably 2 or 3 firings.
Yeah, I would.
What would you consider an issue?
Oh.
Ooh, that gets
Well,
technical.
it gets technical. So an issue might be something called devitrification, which we probably don't need to get into that right now.
No, but
it's where you
scum
get
on the
this,
surface.
where the glass gets this kind of hazy, like scummy almost look to the surface where the glass is no longer shiny. So that can occur if you overfire something too many times. You can shift color, warm colors in particular, yellows, oranges, reds, right? You can shift them out of,
out of their
their
orange,
normal
red,
color,
yeah.
so which is not always all that great. The third thing is, and this is a scary one, is
And this has happened to us.
and this has happened. You can change the COE of the glass if you fire it too many times, or too hot. So there's the other part of that. And then so how is, what is too many times? There's a glass manufacturer that says that when they test their glass, they test it 3 times, and that's it. And so if you were to go to them and said, hey, I fired this thing 5 times and something bad happened, they would say to you, well, we don't fire our stuff 5 times. We fire it 3 times. So how many times can you fire it? I mean, it really just depends. Part of it, again, is also temperature. I mean, if you were firing something several times and you were below a full fuse, you could probably do that lots of times. The tree that Kaylee just showed you a little while ago, that thing was fired 6 times.
Let's show that again.
But it wasn't always. It was
Yeah, but-
only one time at a full fuse.
Yeah, but only one time at a full fuse.
And then every time after that, it was
Lower temperature.
below. It was probably.
And then if you see with the image, that piece is flat, but we could have slumped it, right? And that would have been another firing, which I would feel comfortable doing that,
Sure.
right? Because slumping temperatures are pretty low enough. You're probably not going to mess around with color at slumping temperatures. And I would think that perhaps we minimize the risk of changing the COE. What you increase the risk of is devitrification, right? Is the more times you fire something, you're never really sure about that. And I don't know how much temperature affects that, to be honest. But I know people talk about some really specific temperature, but
some specific temperature.
but I've never experienced that personally.
zone
But
that-
yeah, I don't know if that's true. But
Yeah.
whatever. So,
Yeah.
but that was a good question. Thanks for
yeah.
asking.
Did we answer?
I don't know. Did we answer it? Did we dance
Okay.
around it a lot?
Okay.
Good.
Well, when we had issues, it was up above. We were raking.
Yeah, we were firing
foaming, and it was
many,
we were
many
1,700
temperatures, so-
degrees, and
Yeah.
I think we did that a couple times. I don't remember why we did that a couple times. It's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
But we did have an issue then. After we had done that a few times, then we squared it up on a tile. It was a combing. We squared it up on a tile. It was a similar piece, like the combing up there, the orange one with the blue border.
Yeah.
It was like 3 times that big, and it was actually supposed to be a gift for someone. Remember?
Yeah, those people from
yeah.
China.
Uh-huh. And so we were fine, and it was fine until we cut the border and remember, wasn't that right? And when
Yeah.
we put the border around it and fused it, did not like that border. So
But then we fused it back together, And then we went to Slumping and it cracked down the slump, and
Yeah.
then we flattened it, and then it was just a disaster.
So I mean, there's
anyways,
really kind of no other explanation, and that's how we learn a lot of things.
yeah, just for
Nobody
trying.
tells us anything.
Just for trying,
We
right? You just keep
stumble,
doing
bumble
it.
around
So
it,
you
yeah.
just got to keep trying. So unfortunately, to get back to the question was, I mean, how many times is, I mean,
I think we
you
have
get
to
away
say
with
we
what you
don't
get
know.
away with, right? So
Yeah, right. But I mean, safely, if you do one full fuse and then you do a couple of slumping things or adjust, I mean, I would say, 3 or 4 as long as
I
you're
would
not
think so. Yeah, I
exceeding,
mean,
1,500 degrees each time. I mean, that would be.
I would agree with that. I would think you should be able to do 3 or 4 firings without any issues. I would guess.
Okay.
Normally. So.
I think that's all the questions we have,
Yeah,
unless
that
we
was
have
it.
anybody else that wants to chime in.
We'll give it a few seconds and see if
All right.
anybody
Good.
quiz anything.
Well, thanks for joining us. And, if you guys have ideas for other presentations you want to do, because, I mean, this one was so riveting. That
I enjoyed it.
was it fun?
I enjoyed it.
I mean, feel free to reach out to us. You can always email us.
Are we going to skip? When's our next one? Are we skipping?
We're going to do, not next week, but the week after.
Oh, we are.
And we were requested to do a tour.
Yeah.
So I think we were going to do
Oh,
a
we were
quick
gonna do
tour.
the
Yeah, we're going to do a
Yeah.
quick tour. And we thought that might be kind of fun. So yeah, so
In 2 weeks.
join us in a
Okay.
couple weeks.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
Sounds good. Thanks.